Welcome, everyone. My name is Natalia Berezhna, and I'm a project manager for NACCE headquarters, as well as Making Our Way Forward podcast producer. Welcome to this breakout session where we have our colleagues from Houston Community College with an exciting topic, APPATHON, Virtual Student Hackathon, Practical Guide. We hope by the end of the session, you'll know about these hackathons and APPATHONs, and also will know how to conduct them at your premises. But before we begin, I'd like to remind you about some of the housekeeping items. Please interact with us and please engage with us because we reward our most engaging participants with prizes. You will see on your Slido or on the side chat, the idea chat. This is your place for comments or any insights, Q&A box for your questions, and also we'll be running some polls. So at the point of going to the poll, just check out the poll tab. We want to hear from you as well. Also, just a reminder, don't forget to use a hashtag NACCE2021 if you plan to post on social media, and we do encourage that you post this on social media. As well as this session is being recorded, and the recording will be available to those registered participants with VIP virtual ticket at the end of October. Lastly, this event won't be possible without our great sponsors, and this is our place to thank all of our NACCE 2021 sponsors. And if you haven't yet, please be sure to check out their virtual exhibit hall. And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Ravi Brahmhat. He is the Director of Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship with Houston Community College. Ravi?
Thank you so much, Natalia. Again, it's an honor to get a chance to share our lessons and learnings at Houston Community College with the National Association of Community College for Entrepreneurship. Truly an honor, and I'm so proud to be here with our colleagues from our instructional side joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about sort of the APPATHON and how it came about and how you can host one at your institution, and it is going to be sort of a practical guide where we will just share our lessons and share our tips on how to host one. As we've done in the past, we're all about sharing, and we want these things to be for the benefit of the higher ed community. So by all means, do ask us questions, do reach out to us. We will have a slide for all of us who are presenting on this at the end with our email addresses. So with that, look, our overview for this, we'll go through on how to build and sponsor an effective virtual hackathon at your college. We'll also talk about attracting new CE enrollment and international students into your institutions. How the APPATHON facilitates that. And then also we'll end with why the APPATHON program, solves global problems with local creativity and skill building. And, I say local with a little scratch off of it because now local is kind of entirely global. We are a one large, global citizen group. So I say local with just some tongue in cheek there. So with that, let me take the lead here in sharing on building and sponsoring an effective virtual hackathon. So again, my name is Ravi Brahmhat, and I am the Director of Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Houston Community College. Most of you for over the last 5 years have seen this vision board, shared at this conference where, we really do want to build change makers. And we do that by inspiring awareness or building awareness and then inspiring actions. We really believe that if we can teach our students to care, think, design, act, and make, that we're going to lead them to be innovators of tomorrow that can solve any problems. So from this vision of having these activities, the hackathon for us is a training session that plays role in the larger semester's student pitch competition that we host. So with that in mind, let me just quickly tell you how this event came to be for us. So we want to thank COVID-19 for allowing us to evolve and pivot our in-person 2-day Inventathon activity that we do on Saturday and Sundays in person at our advanced manufacturing facility. That event, due to COVID, was canceled. and we could not let our students wait. So we said, let's just try something. And later you're going to see how, our first attempt in fall 2020, what happened there and how it's grown since then. So it's really, our pivot from an in-person hackathon into a online, completely virtual APPATHON, our student hackathon. So, in order to answer, if you wanted to host your own hackathon, you got to start with the who. And I say this because the first thing that we did is we had our president at the college, very supportive of doing these activities. Quite frequently, she sponsored our programs, and then has also enabled us to work with the deans and the faculty chairs and faculty member to say, look, let's plan this event together. We're very careful on not making this another initiative that is, for us to do. We want to get buy-in from people and say, look, there is a win-win for all of us if we get together and do this. So for us, the who started off with our office, which is the Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship Office, along with the Digital and Information Technology Center for Excellence. The dean at the time was very supportive in hosting a meeting and bringing in some of his chairs and saying, we want to support this, what do we do? Some of the faculty members that you're going to hear from later today, they were from the original team, and they're still part of the team here that's doing this. So it's so important for you to find that local, in the institution, the context that can facilitate these activities. So start with the who. Later, I also share that, the who will eventually become broader based on what's happening. So our who today includes the International Student Services Office. It also includes our Continuing Education Office. It also includes our HCC TV office. So there's multiple partners who start to get engaged after you start this conversation. So start small, but then keep growing the team as you find a small success. Step two is you got to define the when and the where. So for us, it was really tough, not being able to do this in person. So we, decided that, look, because this is a training session for us, this happens mid-semester. And of course, we decided to post this on Zoom and make this virtual. So for us, we usually host our hackathons, the second month or the beginning of the third month into the semester. So we actually just had our APPATHON October 2nd, just a few days ago, and it went extremely well. This conversation does require everyone's agreement. Of course, scheduling is one thing, but then you're going to be driving speakers and community partners and judges and mentors. So you want to make sure that you find a time that you can do this. Now, for us, it became very difficult to put this on a weekday because this program typically requires 8 to 9 hours from start to finish. We ended up putting this on a Saturday. I think it's very important that you consider Fridays and Saturdays for your operation or your first one, especially if it's a smaller one in the classroom. So just think that through and then make sure you're inviting the right people to those conversations. Lastly, step three, you got to agree on the what and the how. So for us, the what is simple. We need to teach, app showcase. Apple has made tremendous strides in providing this education free to the community and the public. We needed to figure out how do we take their 80-hour curriculum and truncate it into a 1-hour program so we can offer it to our students in a true hackathon fashion, right? It's so helpful. Majority of the legwork here is done by the faculty. They bring the content, they discuss about what they want to show, what's important, what can wait. They put the whole program together, and you're going to learn from the two faculty members in a bit here about the what and the how. So it's so important that that you have a team to do this. If you try to take this on alone, boy, you're going to fail very quickly, fast. So just be mindful of that. And for us, step 4 was persuading the others on the why. So, when I say persuading others, it is about bringing other faculty to realize that this is worth the effort of promoting in the classrooms. It's also persuading students to show up. One of the partners in this is the Computer Student Association, Computer Science Student Association at HCC. When we present, sort of the draft flyer to them, this was something that they said, this is great, we want to support it, we will show up, and they're taking part in these activities. So for us, it's all about persuading, all of the participants that they need to be there during that day, focused on this curriculum, and they're all excited to support it, and that will require your center or your departments, whoever is leading this. That effort needs to be coordinated. I often get joked at that I'm the glue that brings these entities together, but without the entities, there's nothing to hold, right? So it is a true partnership, and we definitely want you to know that that's very important. Lastly, when you find little success, there's a saying that success has many parents. So when you find a little success, make sure you're capturing the event, you're taking the recordings, the screenshots, you're publicizing the content after, so that you can invite other people, other organizations to the next one and really scale the effort. So you're going to see how we've been able to take our first hackathon with a little about 60 students and then take it to about 200 or 165 students. So you're going to see how we've slowly added more and more things, and we're constantly innovating in this effort. So I'll just put the slide up to the who, just for us to know. It's the center, the Student Association, the Innovation Student Association Club, the CE and the DIT. For us, as I mentioned, the when and the where. It's an 8-hour program offered on Saturdays, usually in the mid and early of the semester. It is a rapid prototyping training. Students are going through a very hands-on activity. It is a project-based learning activity, and they are very engaged for this throughout the entire session. It's often it's high energy as well. The what and the how, we at the team decided to work with Zoom, Remo.co, Bitly, which is a URL shortener, a tool, Google Drive and Slides, and DevPost. I've shared these resources many times before. DevPost has been kind of the one that stuck around for us. It's working out great. We use it. Hacker Earth is another one, and just Google for these hackathon platforms, pick one that works for you. So that's that, and I'll kind of leave you with the model of the hackathon, which we start off with the inspiration for the day. We bring in keynote speakers from the industry. We provide students instruction, at least an hour of instruction with some guidance on what it is an app showcase and what are we expecting from them. We give them challenges. These challenges are coming from, the United Nations 17 sustainability goal. We'll choose one or two and then just make that our challenge. They say, hey, UN has a goal for 2030. What can you do to get solve that goal? We kind of let the kids go and allow them to make, and they get to make their own teams. They get to make their own projects. They make all these decisions themselves. We support them with some expert sessions and expert mentors for the making part. Eventually, we ask all the projects to be submitted by a deadline of 3 p.m. For the day. After all projects are celebrated, we celebrate all ideas that come in through a community showcase, where we're just going through and seeing, what ideas have come in. For our in-person hackathon, we actually invite the parents of the kids, and all the students have a table in the hall to showcase their projects. And then after the showcase, we do a panel, sort of a pitch competition with a panel of judges, and letting each entry be evaluated based on a rubric that's actually from the Apple's showcase. And lastly, we celebrate by giving out awards. So that, in a nutshell, is how you do it. So to talk more about the instructional piece, I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues, Anshi Shah and Shilpa Faisal. So Anshi and Shilpa, take it away.
Well, thank you, Ravi, for our introduction. And let's go over the instructional piece that we work with. I'm trying to move my slide. Okay. So this is how we start. We start giving instructions to the students by going through a process. And the process of app making involves the app creation. We provide them tools and give them demos on tools like Keynote, PowerPoint, or Google Slides. And then we provide them video resources that are part of their learning. The process, app making process, the template that we have picked up is from Apple's teacher learning resource website. And we have partnership with Apple as well, so that we gets the lead in that process. So the starting process starts with the brainstorm. The students are given some kind of instruction, would they brainstorm on ideas, what is the purpose, what is the audience, what is the focus. Then they go into planning of that. So planning becomes the UI, UX features, the iOS features, or any other features that they want, depending on the accessibility. Then they have to learn how to create that prototype by creating either the navigational part or the flow chart. And then these processes are then evaluated by the judges. So coming back to this brainstorm, so this is the activity they go and follow. So they work through the challenge, and then they put that idea into their template, so-called, and then this is the instruction they are going through. Then they plan through the template again, where we enforce some kind of features like empathy, the audience. So that becomes the focal point for them to go through that part of planning. Then comes the prototype. So this is the event. Then they go through the prototype. When they create the teams, one of the team members works on their ideas and draw it out or sketch it out, and they create their apps using those tools. These are the resources coming from the appleteacher.apple.com. A lot of resources that we pick it from, but one of them which we want to enforce is app design activity. Here is the guide. You can also, anybody can go and download that guide and the showcase template that you can then work on or make your students work on that. With this, the next slide is about prototype and how to design the prototype. And I will give that to Anselin Shah to continue with that process.
You're muted. You're muted, Ansi. You're muted.
Ansi, are you muted or shall I talk? So with the prototype process.
I got it. All right, sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute while I had the control of the slide. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so as Shilpa mentioned, we follow the 4 steps from Apple: the brainstorming, the planning, prototyping, and evaluating. And we discussed all that in one presentation pretty much what she showed, so that they can get an overview of what they're doing today. But then we create a different presentation on just the prototyping part, because basically the students are going to be creating a presentation using one of the tools Shilpa mentioned. And this presentation is the actual prototype. So we spend some time going over what they're actually expected to create. One thing I want to mention is that the 4 steps that we talked about earlier are the steps in the older process template that we used from Apple. And now if you go to the website that Shilpa showed you, you can download the new template, and it's a keynote actually, and it has 5 steps instead of 4. So we kind of focused on the 4, but now the 5 steps are define, prototype, test, validate, and iterate. It's the same stuff. It just actually 4 of the 5 steps are now on the prototype. So it kind of is a lot of emphasis on the students making a prototype, because that's the bulk of their time. So when we get to the prototype, by then, they've already done the brainstorming and planning, and hopefully in the earlier steps, they've planned out their design. The planning is definitely underrated. It's one of the most important parts, and what you want them to do is to sit down old school and draw it out. Now, once they have a good idea of what their screens will look like, they can start prototyping. This is the fun part, but also very time consuming, depending on the experience they come in with. For younger kids, obviously, they could definitely keep this step simple and have presentations with posters similar to the science fair. But obviously, for the older students, we want them to create a fake app using one of the tools Shilpa mentioned. And from what we've seen, they all like to use Google Slides. They're very familiar with it. It's great for collaborating. So we kind of go into like, it's fake it until you make it. And that's what a prototype is, a fake app. Prototyping for them sounds fancy, but all we basically want them to do is create screens. That's all they're going to do based on their drawings. And if you see here, all these are, this is a table. There's text, color, images. They can definitely use a rectangle shape for a phone with a thick border. That's always looks clean and simple, but they can also use phone images. Now we provide a few of them to download if they want, and they can look for their own. And once they decide that part, they're ready to begin designing the slides. And how did they design it? This is just a shape, a phone. This is a text box like in PowerPoint or Google Slides. This is a shape with text in it. These are shapes. You can import images, maps, all sorts of stuff, icons. So after they create all the slides, you kind of want them kind of like an outline, but create them all ahead of time. I mean, at first, then they can start putting their presentation together. And that's what the whole point of that day is, to create this presentation. The first part is obviously an introduction, the team members, and the idea of what their app is going to be. Now, the next part is called storyboarding, something we've all heard before, though if you download the newer Apple template, instead of storyboarding, they're calling it mapping. And basically, you take the screens that you've already designed, hopefully they've done it, that'll make it a lot easier, and then they put it together on one or more slides and use arrows to show the navigation paths. And then the other part of storyboarding and mapping, and they can do it after or before, is taking each screen, one per slide, and giving it a brief to detailed summary. Obviously, the more details, the better. If you're talking about computer science students, this is a great time to use computer terminology, if statements, loops, what this screen's going to do. But if not, they can go as simple as, this is a table, these, it's got buttons, they're colored, this is an icon we came up with, or just a summary. So it just depends on where they're kind of coming from, their background. So far what we have is we have the intro, the storyboarding, descriptions, and now we get to the really fun part. It is the prototyping. Now, I try to show them how to do a prototype with a very simple app, because all we want to do here is not give them ideas, and they're definitely not going to want to create this app, but it's just to get the idea of the process. And even after we go over the presentation, they do have a lot of questions about this part. And that's when all of us make ourselves available. But this app doesn't do much. And what it is, it's basically each of the screens, one per slide. And it doesn't even matter the order, because you're going to pretend this is the app. This is just a shape. This is just text. But just like you would link to an outside website, this is linked to another slide. So when I click on it, I go here. Now, maybe this is a volunteer app. Did you volunteer with us before? If you click yes, it goes to a screen with some information. And if you click go back, it goes back to this one. And maybe what if they had said no? That's just a button that's linked to this slide, which is a different one, and it gives them instructions on how to create their account, or you can go back. And then we have text or a picture, and they're both linked to the last slide. And you can even add all the Keynote and PowerPoint animations. And like I said, this is not meant for them to use an example of the content. This is meant as an example, just something simple, so that they know what prototyping is, because this is the part that kind of eludes them a lot, and they're a little confused, but definitely the most important part. And that's really it, those 3 steps. So there's storyboarding with the navigation or the mapping. There's a description of each screen, and then we call it the build, or in the new terminology that Apple is laying out, the wireframe of the actual prototype, which is actually a lot of fun to do. And that's it. And on this, I'm going to turn it over to Samir.
Thank you, Nancy. Hey, everybody. Very glad to be here today. My name is Samir Saber. I oversee HEC's continuing education program. If we can have the quick poll that we asked for earlier from the audience, how many of you have a continuing education program? If you can just say yes or no.
Samir, you're going to get the results later if you want to continue.
Okay. So you can do a lot with continuing education. I know we're switching the subject here, but this is all tying into a lot of things you could do beyond just hosting a hackathon, because capturing this sort of data and your endeavors, you can funnel what you're doing into many other things. And so that's the point of continuing education. It's a very broad term, but at the end of the day, anything that is additional education falls under the realm of continuing education. So you'll hear about professional certifications, on-the-job training, conferences, hackathons, workshops. You can capture this from all of these areas and more. So what's the point of continuing education? Obviously, additional revenue is always a good thing. It can be, so when you offer continuing education courses, they could be free, but they can also be paid. It could even be just a small fee, or they could be full-blown courses. It's very flexible. It lets you test new offerings. So for example, the APPATHON for us was a great way to test the waters, see what, how could we bridge what we were doing with app design, with the coding that we had, obviously our partnership with Apple, and how could we bridge all that into a package and involve the community? As Ravi mentioned, during a time when COVID, everybody was virtual and they needed a fun way to get engaged. And our first hackathon or APPATHON was November 14th, 2020. So it helps you tell your story. That's another great thing about continuing education. It like I said, blends what your school is doing, and you can tie all your programs. As you see today, we have our different faculty. We have our entrepreneurial director here. I'm the CE director. We have our chairs. So it's a combination of everything that the school can offer and more. So what do you get from continuing education? So I'll just briefly mention sort of what those different things you can get from continuing education, because it can be confusing. So traditionally, you'll hear CEUs, or continuing education units. Those, no one owns the term CEUs in terms of schools, but schools use CEUs when a program is typically accredited by some sort of organization. And the way it works, you get 1 CEU per 10 hours. The CECs, the continuing education credits, that's normally for things like the hackathons that are free, open to the community. And those are typically 45 minutes to an hour would get you 1 credit. And then CPEs is another one you'll hear a lot, continuing professional education credits, especially for certifications like CompTIA and ISC squared. It's similar. It's for those 15 minutes equals 1 credit. So what can it lead to? There are many different ways you would want to again, host hackathons, do workshops, have guest speakers, all those great things that can be around continuing education. And some of the grabbers that you can tell your audience to get them to join is for them to maintain the certifications. So if you can give them hours for attending your events, it can help them get enough credits to maintain the certifications, depending on what it is. Some have yearly requirements, some have every 3 years, and so on. The other thing that it can lead to is you can actually get credit towards real degrees. So continuing education is typically considered non-credit, but I don't like the term because they can be credit. It just depends on the schools. So for example, at HCC or any other community colleges, through prior learning assessment, what you can do is utilize the training or the hackathons, the workshops that your students get. You could extend those into longer courses. Perhaps the APPATHON leads into an actual development course or design course. And that course can then lead into, depending on the chairs and the deans, they can say, this is good enough for me to give you credit towards a degree. So it can be a great feeder towards your programs. Another thing is a resume booster. So our students love to compete because more than just the cash prize, they love to put on the resume. These students need a way to prove themselves. They want internships. They want the much bigger prize. At the end of the day, it's a great resume booster. So historically, like I said, the first hackathon was on fall 2020. And this is a time when I had just joined as the CE director, and I thought, we're doing an amazing APPATHON event. We need to capture this enrollment. And this is the way, again, like I said, to boost your numbers as a school. If you're able to show that you're helping the community, that you're boosting your numbers, you can then apply for grants. Like I said, tell your story. So the first fall semester, we had 59 registrations. We had only 3 that were outside of the US. We had 49 DevPost registrations, 9 app submissions. As you can tell, spring 2021, so within a semester, we more than doubled in terms of outside non-US registrations. You can see that number went a lot higher. We had more registrations. We had less submissions, but that's because we had a lot more participants. The actual team participants was 16 or so, and the first one was 9 or so, or something like that. The third one, as you can tell, the recent one that Ravi mentioned, we had a lot more registrations. This is when we went sort of global, right? A lot more students from outside. Is very diverse, is really awesome to see how the kind of demand out there and the impact that we had on much larger scale. So as you can tell, we had a lot more registrations and submissions. And I forgot to mention that we turned all those registrations into enrollment, obviously, because that helps our numbers. So what will we do next? Well, we're planning to extend the APPATHON into a CEC course that would be on demand for a few months. As Shilpa mentioned, we have a lot of material from the Apple school, the learning community, to basically help students learn some more. And eventually we would like to build additional CEU courses, the ones where it could be paid, that can actually funnel into degrees. And this is when we can really bring those ideas to life and offer design courses, development courses. So the other thing is, you know, we want to keep building our community. Our students are best marketing tools, if you will. They network, they attract others, they come back, they spread awareness. So, and obviously if we get better every APPATHon, it's not always perfect because there's always room for growth. There's always ways to fine tune everything. So learn from your past hackathons and improve.
Pass it to Andre.
Yeah, it's me. Hey everybody, my name is Andre Herman. I'm the department chair for digital communication and digital gaming and simulation at Houston Community College. Today, what I'm going to be discussing with you all is how our APPATHONs at HCC provide students with an opportunity to address global problems, not just locally, but internationally with design thinking skills. Thank you. So the first thing that I really want to talk about is how the key to innovation. And so innovation and creative problem solving is a universal language. And the way I like to think of it is it's like a key. When you bring these three items together, creativity, purpose, and action, when you bring them together, they create this very interesting key that gives our students and actually anyone access to some of the most difficult doors to get past. And so action, purpose, and creativity. Action is they're actually getting up and they're addressing an issue. Purpose, well, they have a reason for why they want to address that particular issue. And then finally, creativity, actually using their ideas and either working individually or hopefully as a team to solve the particular challenge at hand. One of the most exciting things that we do with the APPATHON every year is Ravi will choose challenges directly from the UN sustainability goals. And so we've included the link down there so you can actually go in and view these goals yourself. And what you'll find is that there's 17 major goals that the UN is addressing and highlighting. And what you're going to find is that those 17 goals are actually universal. Well, they're global. So it's not, they're issues that aren't just addressing developing worlds. They're also challenging and creating problems for our students and our attendees, even at the community level, right in their own neighborhoods. And so by giving them access to these particular challenges and these topics, well, we're inviting them to really try to be creative and solve problems at the community level. Now, will they? Well, maybe not. They may think bigger and want to work with a particular organization or create an app that addresses one of these issues in a developing country or a war or conflict-torn area. And that's great, but the point is we're giving them the option to address it. Now, where this becomes really interesting is that in order to be creative and also be successful at problem solving, well, we have to provide people with at least a few parameters. If we were to just have an APPATHON and say, hey, everybody, go and do whatever you like, we're going to spend 8 hours with people trying to figure out even what problem they want to address. I mean, think of it like pre-COVID when we talked about going out to dinner, ask your group of friends, hey, where are we going to eat? And everyone says, geez, I don't know, right? But as soon as you say, hey, I want to suggest Thai, now everyone says, ooh, okay, we have the idea of where to go, now which restaurant, right? And that's sort of the direction that we want our students to go in. We want to give them just a little bit of a boundary to work within. I'm still not getting, there we go, thank you. Okay, so within the process of the creativity process, we're giving our students we're taking the opportunity to introduce design thinking as through an educational process by the instructors as a primer or a warm-up, right? So we're, as was discussed earlier with Ansi and Shilpa, they're being taught briefly or introduced to brainstorming, planning, prototyping, evaluating, and empathy. And empathy, all of these are very important, but we can't lose sight of empathy, as was mentioned earlier, because really we have to keep the end user in mind. So we can create something that's really amazing, but if the person or the end user can't figure out how it works or how it's beneficial to them, or it takes too much time to figure out how to navigate through the final product, well, they're going to toss it and look for something else. And so we want to make sure that that component is there. One of the things that we really find surprising every time, the whole whopping 3 or 4 times we've done this, is just how surprised the students are at how much they can accomplish within an 8-hour window. And I think this goes back to actually giving the students parameters by saying, okay, we've chosen 2 topics for you to address. You have 2. We establish those parameters, and we're kind of creating the frame of the sandbox. And we say, hey, you have to work in the sandbox here. Once they come together, some of them come together as a team, some of them come individually and then find a team. But once we get them into the sandbox, and once we give them we provide them with the tools and the resources, they take off pretty quickly. And then we dangle the carrot or the Twinkie or whatever the award is that you want, which is the cash award. And it really stokes, right? It takes that spark and we throw fuel on the fire, and away we go. Finally, through our APPATHONs, we're really trying to cultivate a culture that champions creativity, collaboration, and innovation. And so you can see through this visual chart here that once we take all of these elements and we bring them together like we have in this event, we create something unique, and we provide an opportunity to students and visitors who may not have ever had the opportunity to do it before. So it's a really fantastic opportunity. Finally, I want to end. I want you all to think about this quote. Recently in the Wall Street Journal, there was an article, an interview with Johnny Ive, who was a confidant and very good friend to Steve Jobs. And in that article, in that interview, he said, Steve truly believed that by making something useful, empowering, and beautiful, we express our love for humanity. And we were talking about this presentation earlier this morning, and this quote, when I read the interview, I really made a note of this quote because I thought that it really hit the point of what a hackathon, an inventathon, appathon, whatever it is that you want to call it, is trying to achieve, is that really useful, empowering, and beautiful are all these 3 similar elements, but they're very different. And we're all striving to do what Steve Jobs was trying to do and was successful at doing. And even though he said it and he applied it to Apple, we can all take these words and share it with our students, our faculty, our employers, and our employees to hopefully address our challenges and problems and find innovative solutions. Oh, we missed the slide.
Yeah, so thank you so much. We're right at time here. So this is the contact slide for all of us at Houston Community College. We welcome any conversation, any question that you may have. Natalia, please do release the poll, and we're looking forward to the results. And as we're waiting on questions, I'll let you take a screenshot of this slide, but then we did want to share this slide. As we're waiting on questions, all of the ideas that came in at our last APPATHON, and welcome you to go directly to bit.ly/APPATHON21 and see all the projects that the students have put together within a very short time frame. And these are amazing. The ones that have the winner banner, those ones are the ones that won cash from our sponsors. So welcome you to go check that out, and we'll take any questions at this time, Natalia.
Well, thank you so much. That was very informative and lots of great ideas and visuals. We do have some questions here in the chat. At this point, we had a question about, are you planning to host a hackathon in 2022 in your college? And 100% of our participants said no, but we hope this will change. But for now, we do have a question, and the question comes from Simon Reen. And the question is, did you use a collaboration software to help facilitate problem definition, ideation, prototyping, etc.? Something like Miro or Miro?
I'll take this one. We used a couple of platforms. Obviously, the Zoom is the one to bring everybody on a virtual platform, but then we used a platform called remo.co to facilitate team building and interaction amongst the students. We also had mentors from the community join remo.co to sit with the students on the virtual table and have these conversations. Other than the practical, I mean, the lecture seminar type of, we did all of the mentoring and advising in Remo, if that helps.
Thank you. Another question is also, you mentioned about some of the timing to hold these hackathons. And the question here is, did you find holding it on Saturday hampered participation? And that also comes from Simon Reen.
I'd like to answer that one. I think weekends are actually great, not just for hackathons, but for regular courses as well. It's something that we started trying actually on the regular side of things, and we saw there was actually high demand. And even more surprising, I guess I can make a comment that some students actually love overnight, the night owls. So you could go down that route if you wish, but weekends, after hours, because most students, they're working during the day. Saturdays, why they feel a lot more comfortable perhaps, so they're more relaxed and they can kind of have fun.
Thank you. And well, now, since you were talking about marketing a lot, there is another question also. How did you market this program to drive awareness and enrollment?
I can start, and then Andre, I'm going to ask you to just talk about student clubs. So look, our communications office gets the flyers, we get it out. Our student services made a very nice email that sent out to all the advisors and the counselors. And then we're working with partners like Junior Achievement. So they're bringing us students, Thai University, local University of St. Thomas. So partners outside and are utilizing our HCC created collateral. But I think word of mouth, Andre, if you could share a little bit about clubs and students.
Yeah, so every time we offer an event like this, one of the major components to our promotion is to share the details with all of our faculty, both full-time and adjunct, and even the dual credit at the high schools, to share the flyers and announce it to the students to let them know that the door's open and they have this opportunity to attend. Really, that's our biggest secret. We create the collateral, we share it throughout the faculty in the classrooms, social media through the student clubs on different social media platforms, and that tends to bring people in. And then on top of that, let me add one other thing, since we're talking about this, is that through the APPATHON, we also have the opportunity that once we have the eyes and the attention of all the attendees, well, then we let them know that, hey, we also offer a certificate in what you just did. So now that we have you hooked and you have a taste of what app development is, now come to HCC and sign up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one more question here. How did you attract non-US registration for your APPATHON?
Very similar. I mean, our partners did a lot of the legwork there. TIE, which is TIE.org. They provided the sponsorship prize money of $2,500 for the APPATHON. And they are a global nonprofit. So there's a chapter in most of the US major cities and 61 chapters across the world. So find a Thai chapter and ask them to support these things. They are all about fostering entrepreneurship. So they did the promo amongst their group, and that's how we ended up getting so much international registration. And
I can say that we did capture enrollment from international students and gave them CEC credits as well. Mm-hmm. So that is possible. You can definitely do that.
That's really interesting. And we want to reward Simon Green for putting all these questions. So Simon Green, congratulations. You've won a $5 Starbucks gift card. Well, we still have a couple of minutes. And before I go into some wrap up, Ravi, would you or your team would like to share anything else, maybe some advice about running these hackathons or some of the engagements? And what was some of the lessons learned in terms of some final points? As you see, most of participants maybe never done it before or still not sure how to do it. So maybe one last tip of advice.
Let me request Ansi to share some thoughts and followed by Shilpa.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things we do is we create a Canvas course, and all the people who register, they have access to it before. And we put a lot of the presentations that we're doing in there as videos, and we give them a lot of the resources. So that kind of really helps. We make ourselves available. We found that it's been getting better and better each year. I mean, each time, and the projects are getting better and their execution is getting better. And we know how to the first time, most of them didn't do a prototype at all. All they did was a description. And so the second time we really emphasized the prototype and we went over it more, and then they started doing better with all that. So a lot of it is just each time we do it, we go, hey, we need to make that better, and so on. Shilpa?
Yeah. So another thing is how to attract students is placing out the advertising or something like you engage with the school districts that we have. So we have large school districts in our that is served by Houston Community College. So they are one student group that is very much engaging and they would love to participate. So that becomes a source for us to get them into our system as well. So they also earn as when they are doing their high schools, or even I think we target high school students more. So that becomes our source of distribution and advertising also. So that is one facet that you can utilize for your community as well.
I was going to add one more thing. Samir started some of our clubs, and our computer science club is huge, and they are so active and they do so much. And we use them a lot too. Like we announce it to them, and most of them they love to get involved. So we get a lot from that group. The clubs are a great group.
Well, thank you again. So before we wrap up our session, indeed, Ravi, Andre, Shilpa, Samiranchi, thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon, as well as to those participants who joined us for this particular track. I just put in the chat a brief survey, and I would like you to enter to kind of provide NACCE and our speakers with some of the valuable feedback, as well as some of the important reminders that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be available to VIP virtual ticket holders at the end of October. But that's not it yet. We still have some of the networking session going on at 5 p.m. Central Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And this time, this will be a networking session activity and discussion experience, Minneapolis from home, with our sponsor, Direct Selling Education Foundation. There will be some cooking class demonstration, I believe. So please join us and stay with us, because they also, our sponsors are very generous, and they also have some great giveaway prizes. And tomorrow, starting at 9:15 a.m. Central or 10:15 Eastern Time, we start Future Building Summit. That's the event that will take place till the afternoon. It will be virtually streamed on our platform. It will be available, so you can share the invitation and invite your other who would be interested in this. But this will cover so many different issues, from entrepreneurship to policy to local elected officials, with great keynote speakers. And with that, stay with us, take our service, join us for the networking, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.